It was around 11:30 on a Thursday night when the power went out. I'd just finished a long shift at the hardware store and was sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of reheated coffee, scrolling through my phone in the half-light of the stove clock. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, too quiet for early spring. Even the dogs that usually barked at every passing car were silent. That's the part one still think about sometimes. The quiet started before the blackout. I live alone in a 2-story rental at the edge of town. It's old, cracked plaster, warped doors, the kind of house that creaks like it's remembering something. I'd been renting it for almost 6 months. Cheap place, and the landlord didn't ask many questions, which suited me fine. I wasn't exactly trying to make new friends. That night I was half-heartedly checking messages when the lights flickered once, twice, then everything went dead. No hum from the refrigerator. No software from the ceiling fan. Just a sound I hadn't heard in years. Total, suffocating silence. At first, I just sighed. The power here cut out all the time during storms, but tonight the sky was clear. I stood, stretched, and peered out the kitchen window. The houses across the street were still glowing with porch lights. So it was just me. Perfect, I muttered. I grabbed the flashlight I keep in the junk drawer and clicked it on. Weak beam, half-dead batteries. I checked the fuse box in the hallway closet. Nothing tripped. The switches were stiff and cold to the touch, which meant the outage wasn't coming from inside. So I went out to the small back porch to check the breaker by the meter. The air was colder than I expected. The kind of cold that seeps under your sleeves and makes your breath fog white. Crickets had stopped chirping. Even the wind had gone still. I stepped down the creaking porch steps, trying not to make noise, and that's when I noticed something strange. The side gate, the one that always stuck, was standing wide open. I frowned. I knew I'd latched it earlier. I always do. The flashlight trembled a little in my hand as I aimed it toward the meter box. The cover hung slightly crooked. Someone had opened it. For a moment, I thought maybe the landlord had sent someone to do repairs, but at midnight? That made no sense. When I got closer, I saw the wires. They weren't cut clean. They'd been ripped, insulation torn like someone had done it in a hurry. I felt my stomach drop. My first instinct was to get back inside, call the power company, maybe even the cops. But when I turned to head back, my flashlight beam brushed over something that froze me completely. Footprints. 2 sets, pressed deep into the damp dirt, leading from the side gate straight to my back door. I followed them with my eyes, heart hammering. The door was closed, but when I stepped closer, I saw the knob. It was turned halfway, like someone had tried it and stopped. I slowly reached out and tested it myself. It didn't move. Locked. Thank God I'd bolted it earlier. That's when I realized something even worse. The porch light, the one with a motion sensor, should have turned on the second I stepped outside. It hadn't. The bulb was gone. I stood there, trying to process what that meant. Someone had walked onto my property, killed my power, removed the light, and maybe tried the back door. My first thought was to run to the neighbor's place, but something in my gut told me not to move. I turned off my flashlight, hoping my eyes would adjust, and listened. At first, nothing. Then, tap. A faint, deliberate sound from inside the house. It came again. Tap, tap. Like knuckles brushing lightly against glass. I couldn't tell where it came from. Kitchen window, maybe the living room. I couldn't see anything through the darkened panes. I took one cautious step toward the back door and froze when I heard it again, louder this time, and closer. Tap, followed by a long, dragging scrape. I thought maybe it was wind pushing a branch against the window, until I realized there were no trees near that side of the house. I backed up slowly, eyes darting between windows, when something shifted in the kitchen. A faint silhouette, just visible against the weak light from the street. Someone was inside. Every instinct screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. All I could do was stand there, barely breathing, while that shadow moved past the kitchen doorway, slow, steady, deliberate. I couldn't make out details, but I could tell one thing: whoever it was wasn't using a flashlight. They knew where they were going. I finally found my voice and shouted, "Hey, get out of my house." The sound felt small, almost swallowed by the night. Silence, then a soft creak from upstairs. I hadn't even heard them go up. That's when it hit me: the front door. I'd left it unlocked when the power cut. I sprinted around the side of the house, gravel crunching under my boots, and nearly tripped over the garden hose. I tried the front door, locked tight, from the inside. I slammed my shoulder against it once, twice, but it wouldn't budge. Someone had thrown the deadbolt. That's when the porch light flickered back on. For half a second, I saw a reflection in the glass window pane. Someone standing behind the curtain, looking right at me. I stumbled back, breath coming out in sharp bursts. The light went out again just as fast. I didn't wait another second. I ran across the yard toward the nearest house, pounding on the neighbor's door like a man possessed. When old Mr. Rowland opened it, I must have looked half mad. I told him someone was in my house, begged to use his phone. He handed it over without question, and I called 911. The dispatcher told me to stay put and wait for the responding unit. From Mr. Rowland's front porch, I could see my house faintly through the darkness. No lights, no movement, just that heavy, watchful silence again. It felt like hours before the police arrived, though it was probably 15 minutes. They searched the house top to bottom, every room, every closet. Nothing, no one. But when one of the officers came out to talk to me, he was holding something in a plastic bag, a small piece of black electrical tape. He said they found it stuck over the tiny indicator light of the security camera in my living room. Whoever had been there didn't want to be seen. They told me it was probably a burglary attempt. Maybe someone spooked when I came back inside. But there was one detail they couldn't explain: the muddy footprints that led from the back door straight into the middle of the living room, and then just stopped. No exit trail. No open window. Nothing. I changed every lock the next morning, installed motion lights, even bought a dog. Still, sometimes late at night, the power will flicker for no reason. When it does, I hold my breath and listen. Because sometimes, right after the hum dies, I hear that same soft tap on the glass. I took the winter caretaker job at Cedar Crown Lodge because I needed money and quiet in equal measure. People imagine ski weekends and hot chocolate. In January, Cedar Crown is a cold spine of timbers bolted to bedrock, 10 miles of switchbacks from the nearest town and another 10 from Common Sense. The owner liked that I'd worked construction and maintenance. "You'll be fine," he'd said. "Keep the pipes warm, sweep the snow, mind the generator." He did not mention the wind that teaches you your own name. On my third night there, the weather came in sideways. Snow marched across the parking lot in slow white armies that swallowed the cars we'd left as decoys to make the place look occupied. I made rounds with a clipboard and a cheap headlamp, counting noises. Boilers steady thrum. Kitchen freezers grunt. The bar ice machine's impatient rattle. Normal. At 9:17, the whole building exhaled and went still. First the lights went ribbon thin, then black. The boiler stopped mid-breath. Somewhere in the dining room, a dozen empty wine glasses rang each other like a warning. I let the silence sit on my shoulders for one full inhale. Then I did what the manual said: check the breaker, then the generator. The lodge had a backup diesel unit in a shed 20 yards off the service entrance. Down a shoveled path I kept open like a lifeline. I took a flashlight, a coat, an old radio, and the lodge keys. The air outside bit the parts of my face the scarf didn't find. Snow was knuckling along the ground, low and determined. The only light was my beam bouncing off flakes and the faint smear of town, maybe, far below the cliff line. The generator shed's door was already unlatched. I stopped dead. I always latched it. I remembered latching it, the way the hook stuck and you had to lean your hip for the last inch. Now it swung an inch shy of closed and tapped the frame like a finger. I nudged it open with the flashlight and leaned in. Diesel. Cold metal. Tools hanging where I'd left them. The generator itself wore a halo of frost. The starter lever was down. The fuel valve was off. Not failed, turned. It took both my hands to settle the lever and open the valve. Gloves off, breath in fog sheets. The generator coughed once, twice, then caught. The shed shook with noise. Blessed, ugly noise. Through the open door, I could see a rectangle of lodge windows waking one by one, warm squares in the night. I laughed, a quick, frayed sound. The laugh froze halfway out of me. In the wet snow between the shed and the service entrance, a single line of footprints led from the lodge to the shed. Not back. 8 steps, maybe 10. Deep heel, shallow toe, like someone careful. Barely any drift had softened them. Whoever made them had made them recently. Whoever made them was nowhere I could see. I walked backward to the door, flashlight held too tight. The service corridor inside smelled of lemon cleaner and something colder, a smell I only know now, air that has come through an open door too long. I locked the service door behind me, slid the deadbolt, then slid the mop bucket in front of it like a child. The emergency circuits came up one by one, red exit signs, a single bulb every third fixture humming faint and dull. The lodge felt like a memory of itself. I made rounds again, this time with a pipe wrench in my free hand. Kitchen, clear. Pantry, clear. Hall to the conference rooms, clear. Downstairs staff locker room, clear, though the far shower dripped, slow as a second hand. In the main lobby, something had moved. The firewood cart I keep by the hearth was 3 feet from where I left it. My brain insisted it wasn't. My legs agreed. The cart has a wobble wheel that leaves a little crescent scrape when you push it. A new crescent arced across the slate floor, graceful as a sickle. Hello, I said, because that's what people say in stories right before the bad thing answers. My voice bounded around the high rafters and died under the chandelier. Nothing answered. The radio crackled. It had been clipped to my belt the whole time, cheap, set to the local weather band so I could pretend the world was nearby. When it spit static, I nearly threw the wrench through a window. I thumbed the volume down, embarrassed with no one to see. Gusts to 40, whiteout conditions, a calm voice said. Normal. Human. I kept walking, and then the voice stopped mid-word and the static thinned and a new noise slid in like a blade, a whisper that wasn't quite language. I froze. The whisper hiccuped, turned into breath, and then into my name. Evan. I killed the radio so hard the battery door cracked. The main hallway to the guest rooms runs straight, with framed photographs of the mountain in kinder seasons. Halfway down is a bay window that looks over the parking lot. I glanced out of habit, expecting white and more white. What I saw tied a knot in something deep behind my ribs. Someone stood in the far corner of the lot where the plow piles make dirty walls, just far enough that the snow and dark made them simple. Tall, wrong still, head a shade too tilted. No coat. No hat. Bare arms, maybe. In January, in a whiteout. Facing the lodge like a scarecrow you build for yourself. People hallucinate at altitude, I told the empty hallway. People see shapes. People see what they are afraid to see. That is a true thing. Another true thing. I blinked 3 times, and the shape didn't learn how to be a tree. My hands thought the hallway lights should be brighter, and discovered they were the same old emergency bulbs humming their single note. I made myself keep walking. Room by room, I turned handles and opened doors. The lodge was empty. I knew this. I had checked the register, but I said each room number out loud as I opened it like an incantation. 212, breath. 2:14, breath. 2:16, breath. At 2:20, the door didn't turn. I frowned and tried again. I never lock the rooms. They don't have guests. They don't have to be locked. I took the key ring from my belt and found the right brass tag. The key went in like it had been waiting. A shiver of cold shook my coat sleeves as the door opened. The thermostat inside had been turned down to 45. The window was cracked half an inch despite the weather. Snow dusted the sill. On the bed, the bedspread was folded back to the center, a neat triangle, like someone stepping out had tidied it for the next person. In the bathroom, a towel hung on the rail, wrung but damp. I closed the window and set the thermostat to 60 and said for the hall to hear, "Some kid came up here to drink. That's all. Some kid." Back in the corridor, all the emergency bulbs died at once. There is a kind of dark that belongs to forests and basements and closets. The dark that came then belonged to caves, the kind that has weight. I clicked my flashlight and thanked whatever is in charge of small mercies that had answered. The beam cut a narrow ribbon through the black and found the far exit sign glowing stubbornly, red rectangle afloat in tar. Under it, halfway across the hall, the snowmat lay crooked and a melted line ran from its corner to the baseboard. Inside, snow had melted inside. I played the beam back and forth until it caught the wet. A print, a second, a third. Bare feet. Small. Child small. I followed without breathing. The prints turned into the housekeeping closet. Industrial vacuum, linen stacked like promises, bottles of blue and yellow. The prints stopped at the shelf where we store the pillowcases. The pillowcases were wrong, not in disarray. Arranged. 5 of them in a stack, 2 facing one way, 3 the other, like teeth. I do not scare easy. The mountain teaches you to name noises before you fear them. But something in the part of me that remembers how old fear is said, leave. I backed out, took one more sweep with the light, habit, and that's when the mezzanine above the lobby breathed. The balcony rail groaned as weight leaned into it. A shadow moved along the banister, slow, like a hand deciding whether to drop. Hello. I tried again. This time my voice chose a smaller shape. You're not in trouble. You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous. Something moved, not away, but down. Not footsteps, no drumbeat. Just the sense of mass changing floors. The chandelier's crystals whispered each other like ice in a glass. My beam bounced up to the landing and met no one. It moved across the balcony to the mounted bare head over the fireplace, and there it found something that did not belong, frost on the muzzle, bearded and glittering as if the bear had exhaled winter. My breath fogged, then another fog joined it, a second cloud not mine. It drifted from the air above the hearth and curled toward me as if curious. I ran. I do not remember telling my legs. I remember the sound my boots made on slate, too loud and stupid. I remember the way the front vestibule door glass showed me a smaller version of myself, wide-eyed and animal and real. I remember the key hitting the wrong lock twice and the right lock the third. The vestibule is a 6x8 glass box you pass through before the main doors, meant to keep the heat. The outer door jammed against the drift. I put my shoulder to it and shoved until a mouth opened and snow bit both ankles at once. Wind climbed my coat like a thief. I lurched into the storm and yanked the door closed behind me so whatever air I had let out stayed out. My thinking was not good thinking, but it was the kind that keeps you alive. People live where other people are. Other people were down the switchbacks. I could make it to the maintenance garage at least. Concrete block, man door, spare clothes, radio with a real mast. I made it 5 steps. A figure stood at the edge of the floodlight's exhausted circle, the one over the lodge sign that the generator grudgingly fed. He, or she, wore nothing I could name. Not silhouette, not coat, not naked, not sensible. Just height and stillness, and a kind of leaning that didn't belong to the wind. I whipped my headlamp beam toward it and hit snow. When the beam found the place again, it was empty and the snow there hadn't learned how to keep footprints. I heard something behind me and discovered my body already had the vestibule door in its hands. Inside again, I hauled the bar down and shoved the mop bucket in front of the inner door for good measure, like the bucket knew how to fight. The radio bled static even with the power off. I had not turned it back on. The static thinned and the weather voice tried to say visibility, and instead said, EV, and then the radio died. I put my back to the woodpile and listened. The sound the building made was the sound a chest makes when it has run too far, tight, wheezy, aware of itself. Every once in a while, the chandelier confessed it still existed with a single crystalline tick. Somewhere overhead, in one of the empty rooms, a door latch lifted and fell again with the sound of a coin put down. I do not know how long I stood there before I noticed the ash on the hearthstones. Fine grey dust with a single line drawn through it. Not a footstep. A finger. It swerved right at the end and hooked back on itself as if the rider had been making a J and changed their mind. I said, out loud, to whoever wanted the sound, no, and then, because I am me, I lit the fire. Dry kindling, pine starter, birch logs that catch quick, oak logs that keep. The first snap of flame felt like a window opening. The room changed. Color came back in small cautious patches. The temperature climbed from you can see your breath to your breath only surprises you. The flame showed me something I had missed, a smear on the lowest stair like a hand had ridden it. Not blood, thank God, but something darker than melted snow. Grease. Soot. A reminder. I took the wrench and the poker and went up the stairs because people who don't regret things later are cowards in the moment. The second floor held its breath, but I made it breathe. Room to room. Door to door. Closet to closet. Nothing I could catalogue. At the very end of the hall is the conference room with glass doors so their clientele can make decisions about sales targets while believing they are in nature. I stood outside those doors and watched my reflection watch me. The conference table sat with its 12 chairs like a jury. Someone had written on the whiteboard in a fingertip. 3 tall lines and a little circle and another line. Not letters. Not numbers. The kind of mark a tired child makes while waiting for you to turn and notice. I notice, I said. I notice. I notice. I notice. The building cranked. The generator coughed. The emergency bulbs flared back to life and then joined real light in a quick shy apology. The boiler remembered how to be a heart. The ice machine in the bar found its rhythm like an old song. The radio said, gusts easing by morning. Stay indoors if you can. I stood in the hall with the wrench and the poker and thought about morning. At sunrise, the wind hung up its teeth and backed away. I checked the lot from the bay window. The plough walls were tattooed with new drifts. The parking area was the same untouched sheet. If someone had stood there, they had also learned how to stand without weight. I went to the generator shed in clean air. The latch was shut. The lever was where it should be. The fuel valve was open. A thin crescent of frost curved on the metal where a hand would have rested if a hand had wanted to learn its shape. Next to it, pressed into the soft new snow just at the threshold, a set of prints I could not convince into anything else. Smaller than mine, barer than mine, 10 steps from the shed to the service door. And this time, 5 steps back. Inside the service corridor, the mop bucket was 2 feet from the door, its wheels pointing toward the lobby like a dog. I made calls. The owner. The utility. A friend in town whose truck laughs at roads like ours. By noon, I had another caretaker on site and the owner's nephew doing what heroes do best, believing you are exaggerating. He laughed at the footprints and told me wind makes tricks. I told him wind also makes ice on bear muzzles. He said bears breathe too. We stayed that night 3 deep, me, the nephew, and a third man whose name I forget because my brain only kept numbers then. At 1 in the morning, the lights held. At 2, the machines hummed. At 3, we heard the mezzanine breathe. At 3:04, a small handprint appeared on the lobby glass, inside, 5 feet up, like something seeing what we see. The nephew did not laugh after that. He said, "We go 2 on, 1 sleeping." We did. Morning arrived like a pardon. I kept the job through February because money is money. I kept the fire lit most nights even when I didn't need it, even after the owner bought a whisper-quiet new generator and showed me the receipt like it could buy me sleep. I learned the lodge's new noises and, when the old ones visited, I let them pass like weather. Sometimes, when the power flickers, I hear the radio inhale and the weather voice forget how to say visibility again. Sometimes the ash remembers how to be a surface someone could write on. Sometimes the snow on the sill is a little too clean, as if a careful hand had brushed it smooth, waiting for print. When the season ended and the tourists came back, the owner put a vase of plastic branches on the mezzanine and called it an installation. Guests posed with it and said the mountain felt alive. They were not wrong. When I check in on summer weekends now, the bare head is no longer frosted. The whiteboard is wiped. The mop bucket sleeps. The vestibule glass still remembers one small hand, 5 feet up. We cleaned it with everything. You can catch it only if the noon sun is mean and you stand at the right angle and you already know it's there. You can see the place where a finger changed its mind halfway through a letter and hooked back on itself. I do not read what it says. I know my name. I know the mountain knows it too. The blackout that night didn't just take the lights, it took the world with it. I was working the late shift at a small rural radio station. Midnight to 6. The kind of job that pays in coffee and static. Most nights were slow, a few weather updates, some late-night truckers calling to request country songs, maybe 1 or 2 bored kids trying to prank call. The station sat on the edge of town, next to a stretch of dead highway and a cornfield that went on forever. Inside, it was just me, the console, and the low red glow of the on-air sign. It was 12:42 a.m. when everything in the room blinked off at once. Not a flicker, an instant, surgical cut. The hum of the transmitters died, the monitors went black, and the silence that followed was wrong. Radio stations aren't meant to be quiet. Even when you're off air, there's always a pulse, a faint hiss, a presence. I leaned back, half amused, half annoyed. The power grid here had a mind of its own. I grabbed my phone to use the flashlight and groaned when I saw the screen. No signal, no service bars, just a grey emergency calls only. For a moment, I thought maybe a storm had rolled in, but when I looked out the window, the sky was clean, clear enough to see every star. The field was motionless, silvered under moonlight. The backup generator should have kicked in after 30 seconds. It didn't. I walked through the hallway to the storage room where the breaker panels were mounted. Every light switch I passed was dead. The exit signs, too. I was halfway there when I saw the glass. The outer door to the back parking lot was cracked. Not wide, just enough for cold air to whisper through. I reached out and felt along the frame. The lock wasn't broken. It had been turned. Someone had opened it from the inside. I told myself maybe the night DJ before me had gone out for a smoke and forgotten to close it fully. But deep down, I knew better. I was the only one scheduled tonight. The last guy's shift ended at 10. That was when the sound came, faint, rhythmic, metallic. Clink, clink, clink. Like someone tapping a ring or coin against one of the broadcast towers outside. I stepped to the window overlooking the field. The tower loomed tall and skeletal, red beacon dead in the blackout. Something moved near its base, small, quick, a flutter of shadow against shadow. I squinted, then froze. There were 2 shapes. They weren't walking. They were swaying. At first, I thought it was wind, but there was none. They moved too precisely, too slow, side to side like pendulums. And then, faint through the glass, I heard a voice. Not from outside. from the control room behind me. It was the radio feed, on air again somehow, whispering through the static. Testing, can anyone hear me? The speakers shouldn't have been broadcasting. The mixer was off. But the voice was there, thin, deliberate, human. Can you hear me? The door is open. I turned slowly. The light from my phone caught the microphone stand. The MIC switch was flipped on, and I hadn't touched it. I swallowed hard, stepped forward, and clicked it off. The voice cut immediately. Silence. I leaned close, staring at the console, and that's when I saw something written in the dust on the glass pane that separated the booth from the hall. 3 words, traced by a fingertip. I hear you. My hand went numb around the flashlight. I spun toward the door, still open a crack, and nearly dropped the phone when it buzzed in my palm. No notification, no ringtone, just a vibration like someone had sent a message that wasn't there. Then the power surged back on. Everything at once. The fluorescent lights burned to life, the transmitters whined, the tower outside flickered red again. I blinked hard, half blind from the sudden brightness. The monitor on the console booted up. The automation playlist resumed, except it wasn't music. It was my voice. A recording, perfect down to the breath, saying words I'd never said. If you can hear this, don't look outside. I stared, frozen. The recording looped again. My own voice, flat, emotionless. Don't look outside. I couldn't stop myself. I looked. The 2 figures by the tower were gone. But something else was closer. Right beyond the glass, on the other side of the window, a pale face stared in. Eyes open too wide, mouth slack, skin ashen like frost. I didn't even scream. The breath just left my body. I stumbled back, knocking over the MIC stand, the recording still looping behind me. Don't look outside. I killed the power switch again, plunging everything into black. For a few seconds, I just stood there, shaking. When I looked back at the window, the face was gone. I stayed in the booth until sunrise, every muscle locked, every sound magnified. The generator stayed off. The power never returned again. When the morning staff arrived, the lights flicked on like nothing had happened. They laughed when I told them, said the storm last week probably messed with the grid. But I checked the broadcast logs later that day. There was a transmission recorded during the blackout, a 5-minute segment labeled Live Feed, Unauthorized. It was mostly static, but under the static, if you turn the gain all the way up, you can hear something else. A whisper. Testing. Can anyone hear me? The door is open. Don't look outside. The station manager erased the file. Said it was interference. But a week later, we got an email from a listener 2 states away. They said they'd been driving through static that night, tuning stations for weather updates. Around 12:45 a.m., they caught a brief transmission, my station's frequency. The message, they said, was simple, repeated in a calm, mechanical voice. If you can hear this, it's already too late.